On a completely
I am not. I am not.
Don't get hurt. Fix the $24 billion that would
Yeah,
be lost in
I knew he was a,
property
I
taxes.
didn't know if he had
Sales
a
tax.
full-time job other than being the mayor.
15%. They'd have basically a consumption tax.
All right.
Let's see if he goes
This
next.
Bernie woman was the mayor of.
We also have Mr. Nick Keeling. He's here from he's a transit planner for the Cincinnati Metro.
Yes, sir.
And you're going to speak about your 2028 route expansion plans through Cleves.
Yes, wouldn't mind just passing these down around. Just like to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like to thank Mr. Cafferty for inviting us to present. My name is Nick Keeling. I'm one of the transportation planners at Cincinnati Metro. Been here for a little over 5 years. I'm joined by my colleague Alex Osborne, who's been serving us. How long have you been with Metro now? 2.5. And you're over in Cheviot, so I used to live on the west side. Just bought a house over in Clifton, but was frequently coming out here for years and years and years, and a lot of my mom's family's been around here, so it's a pretty personal part to me. But anyways, the reason why we're here is that recently we had a plan that was passed, and then Councilmember Cafferty dropped me a message saying, hey, you mentioned North Bend and these plans and a route nearby, and curious, would you mind speaking to us about that? And so what you see in front of you is just a simple presentation, some boilerplate stuff about our agency. We'll walk you quickly through and then highlight some changes that we might have in store for North Bend and the surrounding jurisdictions. So just quick thing about Cincinnati Metro, obviously we're serving the surrounding county agency, and so we have about 50,000 average weekday riders, about 4,000 bus stops, 300 buses, about 50 routes that run. Some of those, about 7 of them, run 24/7. We have these zones called mobility on demand zones that serve the farther northern parts of the county. Think of the Coleraine, Forest Park, Springdale, Blue Ash, areas that are really tough to serve with a 40-foot bus. We also have 2 BRT routes that are in the planning process for Hamilton and Reading. And also, one of the biggest things that's why I'm here, why Alex is here, is why a lot of improvements are happening is because of the Issue 7 tax levy that passed in 2020. And so, I'm gonna kind of piggyback on that previous conversation about tax finances and things like that. And one thing that we've been following through, and that's one thing that's been really true to me and true to Alex and everyone else, is that we're following through on the promises that we made with Issue 7 to expand bus service. Since we now are no longer a City of Cincinnati agency, we are now a county agency for Hamilton County. So we are expanding to serve the county and reflect the needs of the county. And
You
yes, sir.
mentioned mobility on demand zones,
Yes, sir.
and that it was tough to serve a community with a 40-foot bus. What exactly do you mean by that?
So a lot of the farther suburban neighborhoods were built with a bunch of cul-de-sacs, wigglier lines and things like
narrow
that.
streets?
Yeah, if it's hard to serve with the fire truck, it's even harder to serve with one of our buses. We can't back them up, and there's no sidewalks in areas like that until sidewalk regulations came in. It's pretty hard for us to bring a bus down these roads, and on top of that, it's kind of a waste of money driving this really large gas-guzzling bus around just to pick up a few people at a dead-end street. And so we have this thing called Mobility on Demand, which are smaller vans, think Uber or something, but significantly cheaper, that will be able to access and provide service for those. They're within certain boundaries. After I'm done with this presentation, Alex is extremely knowledgeable about mobility on demand, and he'd be happy to share with you any information you might have about that. The next slide is simply just an image of our network, primarily the fixed route network. The shading you see in the northern parts are our Metro Now zones. And then finally onto the next one. Part of Issue 7 is that we had something called Reinventing Metro. We basically hit our lowest point in 2019 in terms of financing as an agency, and so that's why Issue 7 happened. And so now we are expanding for the first time since ever. Our agency has been in a period of decreasing since we inherited the former bus systems in the 1970s, and so in 2020 it's the first time we've ever actually expanded. One thing we've been making sure of is increasing more buses and more hours of the day so people actually can use our service more frequently. This actually reflects changes. COVID changed everything and how people work and live, where the jobs are, and so we are trying to re-gear our system to reflect those needs, trying to make it safer, more comfortable, having things like free Wi-Fi, charging ports on the buses. All the buses are state of the art. If you haven't ridden one of our buses recently, it's like traveling to the future now. It's really beautiful. We're bringing out new buses every single year. They're now, portions of them are battery powered as well. Some are hybrid powered. One thing we're trying to do, especially since again, we're a county agency, we're trying to serve the farther areas outside the city of Cincinnati, which has its own unique challenges. Again, that lends to Metro Now. We also have some that are for our access service. So access is what we call paratransit. It is for, you sign up for this service and you can basically have a call and ride that goes to things such as dialysis clinics or other types of medical services. Access is a service that is provided within a certain distance of our normal routes. And this helps a lot of people with mobility issues. And so imagine a lot of agencies across the country have this, but you call the phone number or use an app and you can call this van to come pick you up and take you to appointments.
Is that available now?
Not in this area actually right now, but it is available within a certain distance of our routes. That's one of our bylaws right now for access to provide within a certain distance of our transportation corridors. I actually need to double check to see how much North Bend actually has some coverage, because I believe an eastern part of North Bend does have coverage. And that segues into the next slide actually, is that, well, Addiston is the western terminus of this. And when we were doing our recent short-range transit plan, our first adopted actual short-range plan for our agency, we wanted to be able to grow accurately. We wanted to meet with people and riders across the entire county. So we had people surveying riders, we had people going across the entire county talking to people, talking to riders, going to Kroger's, going to all different types of businesses so we can see if there's a need for Metro, if there's not a need for Metro, what's the best way we could balance the finances from issue 7. And one of those was that we actually heard a lot of opinions about coming farther west. And from people from the west, people even further west over in Lawrenceburg and Aurora, there's a lot of demand going on the west side. And so, and as someone who's spent a lot of my life on the west side, it seemed rather interesting. The next slide basically talks about some recommendations we had. New routes, again, frequency, span, all those things. Improving our stops. We call our stops the front door of our service. And so if the stop doesn't look good, then people are going to assume the rest of the transit system is not good. And so we want to have things such as new signage, having a actual landing pad area for ADA, meeting federal requirements so people can get on with a wheelchair, not just having people in a ditch, which is sadly one of the things that we had. You've seen the stops along River Road. And so bringing those up into the future, a lot of those stops have never changed since we ran streetcars more than 60 years ago. And so this is us finally modernizing our agency. And of course, a bunch of other technologies included as well. But to get past all the boilerplate, this is the part that actually pertains to North Bend. So as part of all this analysis from our short-range transit plan, which is publicly available, you can go on our website right now and look at the entire document. So just go metro.com, and then short-range transit plan is one of the categories, and you can read the entire thing. We have a team of very dedicated planners and analysis, people that looked into the data, looked into census data, looked into survey data to see exactly where these needs were, had areas we should focus our investment in, and what years required those and what areas required the most amount of leverage. And so one route that we have that's near here is called Route number 50. Route number 50 terminates in Addiston right now and doesn't go any farther. It never has gone any farther. Historically, private agencies before the 50s did, but since then, nothing. And there is a growing amount of people that are what we call people that are transit dependent, people that might not have cars, people that are over a certain age that can't drive, people that might benefit from that, people that are below the age of being able to drive. All these are things that go into the data behind that. That's the higher up part. The lower part is actually engaging with the communities, because this is just a plan. A plan is simply just a piece of paper unless we have buy-in from the jurisdictions we want to serve. From this proposal would be an extension of Route 50 to serve North Bend, Cleves, parts of Whitewater Township, and then finally in the area of Hooven, the Kroger there. And I'm glad that piqued your interest because a lot of my colleagues have been asking, why do we want to go farther west out to Hooven? A lot of people who are our colleagues didn't really know too much about Hooven, but I knew a lot about Hooven because I spent a lot of time out here and spent a lot of time just down the street from here as well, off of Miami. And so the next slide will explain more in detail about the route number 50. So right now, the route number 50 used to be a stronger route, but the recession hit, and like most agencies in the country, we had to cut and cut and cut and cut and cut. And we kept cutting that route until it is at its current state. It runs in the morning and the afternoon, every 45 to 50 minutes, 4 or 5 trips inbound, back and forth in the morning, and then in the evening it does back and forth, what we call commuter. It just serves people that are going downtown. But we all know there's a bunch of communities along that line. There's a lot of people that are in the areas past Sealer Park. There's some other routes that go up Delhi Pike, but the Route 50 itself has been a pretty minimum service. One of the reasons is just because there's not a lot of people that live along River Road on that corridor anymore. But people have been very vocal and they've been saying that we live along this corridor and we want better service. So the proposal for Route number 50, just based upon talking to riders, talking to residents, it's been extending this again west to the Hooven-Kroger to serve the jurisdictions of North Bend, Cleves, parts of Whitewater Township, and of course that area called Hooven, and that Kroger. The reasoning for that is that we heard that people want a grocery store along Route 50. There is no solid large grocery store along the entire River Road all the way to downtown Cincinnati. You have some Dollar Generals and things like that. You have the new food bank that's located down there in the old railroad yard off of near Sedansville. But in regards to an actual grocery store, there's nothing. And so the Kroger here was the closest one to a corridor. And a lot of people said this is a grocery store we go to pretty frequently. And so providing them service seemed like a critical help. The other one we heard from is from people from the Three River School District. The Taylor High School, there are some people who are walking the extent to get to Taylor High School. I'm not entirely certain about what the lay of the land is for how students all commute to Taylor High School right now, but we did hear from some families that providing that service would provide an extra help in that regard. Another thing is that with the service increase, you also increase the access coverage. Again, that's our call-in ride service, so that enveloping area that is providing service for people with disabilities and people that can actually use that service, that'll expand as well. And one thing we also want to do is run the service in the middle of the day as well. Be running a similar frequency every 45 to 50 minutes, but at least now it'll be running from the morning to the evening and have some midday trips. So people can do their grocery runs, people can make their connections, et cetera, et cetera. The map on the right-hand side you'll see on this slide is simply just the area of alignment that we've eyeballed. This is just from our own, just walking the route, driving the route, looking at areas. This is extremely preliminary, just a plan. And so you all know your jurisdiction better than I ever could. And so that's why we're here to talk with you, is hear any recommendations you might have on this. And the next slide is finally some preliminary constraints. So driving a 40-foot bus, we have a unionized group of bus drivers, and they have their own opinions about what is safe, what is not safe for driving a bus. And turning right onto Miami Avenue when you're coming westbound to Miami Avenue is relatively simple. Turning left, coming eastbound, is a whole different story. And so there's no light right there. And our unionized drivers are very against driving a bus and turning left into a very fast road. And so that's one constraint. That's one thing that would inhibit this from happening. And so finding a remedy for that is critical. The next one is that there is a really tight turn off of Cooper Ave. This is for your neighbors over in Cleves, but Cooper, Miami, it's a pretty tight turn there coming eastbound. There's a big old traffic light there. I'm not sure if people have hit it, but I'm surprised they have not, because it's really tight at that turn right there. And then finally, figuring out places for bus stops. Talking with property owners, figuring out who would be okay with this. They might not be okay with this. This is simply why we are chatting with you today. This is not a said and done type plan. Again, needs buy-in. So that goes to our next steps. We want to just hear from you. We want to also meet with Cleves. We met with them a few years ago, and they seemed they seem like, yeah, we're interested in this, but there's a lot of constraints that they brought up. And so that's why we're going to keep coming back and just saying, hey, do you still want to do this? This is something we would like to provide, but we can only do this if we have buy-in from the jurisdictions. We also want to meet with Three Rivers to see what their students want from this service. And of course, after we have buy-in from the jurisdictions, we're able to go to Kroger and say, hey, there's buy-in from the jurisdictions, if there is buy-in from the jurisdictions, and say, hey, these jurisdictions are wanting of this service. Kroger tends to listen to us more when we have a jurisdiction to back us up for those. And then finally, one of the other benefits of adding this service is that this unlocks this jurisdiction for something called Metro Transit Infrastructure Fund. And so every single year we have a pot of money that is part of the Issue 7 tax levy that jurisdictions can apply for. And it's a match program, and so this helps people build sidewalks, new roadways, et cetera, et cetera. The whole point of that is that they have to be within 3/4 miles of a fixed route bus. And so those improvements could be new streets, it could be new utilities, et cetera. Those are scored and then ranked by outside constituency. So there is no biasing in that process, but that is some extra financing. So if the bus does serve the jurisdiction, you can now officially apply for that funding as well, which is part of the Issue 7 tax levy. We are now entering our 5th year of the MTIF financing. There is a wealth of information on our website about MTIF if you are curious about that. I believe Addiston has applied for 4 to 5 years now for those financing to improve some of their Main Street areas as well, because we have our terminus there. Again, access coverage. Then finally, increased mobility for all residents. Whole lot of words, whole lot of stuff, but the crux issues is that we were asked to come present, and we just want to hear, what do you think about the bus system? Do you feel like this is something that you actually would benefit from? Have your constituents ever said anything about this service? Or is this something that might be too challenging? It's no financial difference for us to run the bus for this. No, we don't bill you if we do run this service. But Alex and I would love to hear from you about what your opinions might be about this. This is just the beginning of a conversation.
I mean, I think there was always, I think, some concern
Sure.
with having a bus stop in a community where, I don't know if you want to say criminal element or what have you, but if you're giving access to someone who normally doesn't have access by riding on a bus,
Yes.
I think that's been a concern in the past here in North Bend.
Mm-hmm.
But I do see, I do like the fact that you are planning on coming right through our village, and you propose you're actually turning on Miami Avenue off US 50, which is coming right through North Bend.
Yes, sir.
And then you're going right into Cleve. And in fact, we are actually redoing Miami Avenue as we speak. So that will all be nicely blacktopped and everything, all the way up to the Cleve's border.
Beautiful.
And I think Cleve redid theirs a couple of years ago, I think. So that will all be kind of an upgraded route. Now, whether or not where you put a bus stop, I don't know. I mean,
I see all of the on-demand, mobility on demand,
Yes, sir.
which was the smaller
Yeah.
busing service. The village in North Bend has all the same problems as Blue Ash. I mean, all you need to do is drive around here,
Yeah.
which you're familiar with, so you know the turns. And you mentioned the turn at Cooper in Miami. Was that where it would be contemplated, where you would go down to Three River School?
Yeah, we would turn left on Cooper. So if you're going this
that
way,
goes right by the school.
yeah.
I know.
The only problem is that when you're coming the other direction, there's a big light pole right at the turn, which it's tight.
How well does a 40-foot bus navigate the circle?
Oh, we can navigate roundabouts with these. That circle definitely, we ran it by a few of our drivers, and they said we can do it. And so there's a few other roundabouts we have that we service. They're not our favorite, but we certainly can navigate them.
Well, I know there's a fair amount of, because of the failing school system at CPS, a number of people that then they can apply to go to the river for school. So I'm assuming there's a number of kids that, in Oak Hills, I think too, that you can actually now kind of, money follows your student now. So I'm assuming there's a fair amount of people that kind of live like in Sailor Park area, that send their kids down, because that's part of the city of Cincinnati, that send their kids to Three River School, and they can come right now. I'm assuming there's a bus stop there in Sailor Park somewhere.
Yeah, there's usually on our routes, there's bus stops about depends on how dense the neighborhood is, but usually there's a stop every couple blocks, I would say.
I always see them going
Quarter
through,
mile.
they go through that road to stop off at McDonald's to pick up their McDonald's.
Yeah, that's, our drivers really like the McDonald's. It's also with the drivers, they have to have a bathroom, and so that's one of their areas that we've scheduled in as a area they could use the bathroom. There's none at the Addiston turnaround location there, so.
I can see the driver's concern about traffic on US 50. I mean, an enormous amount of commercial traffic. I mean, tanker trucks are tearing up our road. They run here all day long. The road is going into the river. We're trying to get the section of River Road within the village of North Bend addressed by ODOT, which they said, no, it's not our responsibility, it's your responsibility. So we don't need any more heavy traffic out here.
So you're
killing the road.
Yes, we are
Your home rule?
responsible for fixing US 50, which is a US highway.
My sincere condolences.
Yes, so,
Because when we engage with the townships, they sometimes forget that the ODOT has jurisdiction in there when they're not home rule townships, and so it's so this is a different change of pace for this
You know,
conversation.
there's a lot to digest here.
Sure,
And
yeah.
I've been thinking about this for the better part of the day, talking it over with my husband, and he's got some, good ideas. And I see a lot of positive things here. There's no light at Miami Avenue.
Stop.
That needs to be done ASAP. That is an accident waiting to happen without a stoplight.
Has that been a plan from the jurisdiction previously to have a light at that intersection, or is that
Been
never?
brought up, I
there was a
think,
plan to have a light at where the Dollar General is.
Yes.
Because the person that wanted to develop the retail, they all want a light at the retail, right? So people can turn right. He was actually gonna put a turn lane in there
Yeah.
and have a stoplight.
Huh.
But we decided against it, so now I know Fran has always asked for having one down there at Miami Avenue. But
that will need to be reconfigured, because I travel that a lot daily,
Yes.
sometimes. But you're going to have to reconfigure, you've got three things coming together.
Yes.
And that in itself is dangerous. I mean,
And there's a
accident,
bend
right.
coming.
yeah,
So-
It's
one
tough.
solution would be you come back through Miami Avenue, and then you turn right in Cleves at the light.
That's what we were thinking
There's a
about.
light right there where you can then obviously turn left on US 50 and go east.
I think the only reason we were hesitant of that one is we didn't want to spite North Bend in that process, because we didn't want to bypass at least this chunk of North Bend.
But that's coming around.
Yeah.
You're coming into us,
Yeah,
but then
coming
when
into
you
you.
come around, you're gonna go that stoplight, so I would assume your bus drivers would love that.
No, they'd like that, yeah.
But
We'd,
it's-
But going back out to US 50.
And then have maybe something,
Route 264. That where Bridgetown Road comes down. So-
No, it's the
No,
one
no,
before
no,
that,
no.
it's the light before that.
Well, you can always ride the bus from Cleves,
Yeah.
think about it, down to Kroger's if you wanted to go to town and then come back that way.
yeah. There's possibilities, there's a way to bake this cake. It's
Well,
it-
it is, but there are two things that are, to me, flashing. One is US 50. That road is, there are potholes all year long. No matter, they come out, they fix them, we fix them. I think we pay for US 50 because even though it's a federal highway, somehow it got distorted, and all of a sudden we find that it's ours. So we have to pay for it. So that would really interest
I almost had one
me.
today.
That would pique everybody's interest to have, somebody paying for that road. In my opinion, we have no right to be paying for it.
Sure.
So the second one is that stoplight at Miami. That is it's dangerous now, and there should be a stoplight there. And
yeah, but
that
there's,
would be a way to have the bus stop there, take that island out where all those three roads come together. And, but I understand too, the necessity to help people who cannot get the help they need. I don't see too many people walking, but I do see some to Kroger, but helping those others in need with transportation would be a big help.
Sure.
And I think there's a lot of study that has to be done, but I like what I see here, and I thank you for having, this handout. It helps a lot.
Were there certain spots that you thought about through North Bend where you look at a prime spot to put a bus stop?
I would imagine the crossroads, well, beyond outside of the area by the commercial development farther east of here, that being one of them. When you're coming west of Addiston, it kind of drops off, and then when you get past Beer Market, that's where I would imagine there being potentially a pair of stops there. Then maybe one more. It all comes down to physically surveying the site and saying, I wouldn't stand here no matter any time of the day. And so it's a lot of just general safety questions, especially on Route 50. Once you are able to turn off and go on to Miami, I would imagine that if we had to put a stop, it'd be probably the intersection of, excuse me, what is this road right here? This is
This is Taylor.
right?
Taylor and Miami. I would imagine that around that area would be
Or maybe even Miami and East Harris.
Miami East Harris. Like there's,
Where you got the auto shop, right?
yeah.
Because it's a four-way stop.
Yeah, so whatever is the safest, that's our first priority. Is if it's not safe, we're not doing it.
Do you
And
have
so,
influence over where traffic lights get placed? Do you have any, you have a lobbying group that takes care of it?
oh, I wish.
No, I mean,
That-
several years ago, the reason, there was an open forum here where we discussed the traffic light at St. Anne's and US 50, and the population of North Bend said, no, we don't want one there, we want one in Miami because you can't get out there. So if you're gonna put one in, don't put it where the Dollar General is, put it where everyone's coming out from church and
Well, it's not-
all
it's
the
not a
action that
blind
comes
turn.
through here. It's a blind turn off of US 50.
And-
Going eastbound traffic on US 50, it's hard to pick up coming
Yeah.
out Miami.
Yeah, that seemed like something even when I was coming in the morning sometimes, and I was maybe coming down from Miami and trying to turn left to go downtown. You have to wait and wait.
Well, there's a couple places.
Cross your fingers and hold your
If you
breath.
go, if you turn left on your tail and turn right on Sims,
Yeah.
you can get out on US 50 from Sims, which is, you're not near the bend where you're coming out of Miami, so it's a little safer because you can see
Yeah,
the traffic easier. And then if you decide, hey, I want to go where a light, you can then drive in on Miami into Cleveland and turn left when you're at a light right there.
Yeah.
If you're concerned about, so there's an alternative to.
There is alternatives, yeah.
There's an alternative to is, where, and the big difference was if we wanted to put one at Miami, we'd have to pay for the light.
yeah, and that's the thing.
Whereas
is
the one at St. Anne's, the developer was gonna pay for the light.
yeah.
They wanted to pay for it, but ODOT doesn't want to add traffic lights on
Yeah.
US 50.
We've heard that from other
They
districts
do
as well.
because they want that traffic to go through there at 90 miles an hour as fast
Well, they don't
as
stop at
they,
the
fast as they
traffic
can get
light
through
that's
here.
there.
And which always surprised me because ODOT says we are in control of the road, yet they're dictating to us what we can and cannot do. It makes no sense to me at all.
We end up on the paying for it.
Yeah.
Nick, you mentioned that 50 is a large commuter route
Yes.
for individuals. Does Metro ever set up a park and ride type of arrangement where people would, from Boonville, Whitewater Township, Elizabethtown, or out towards the Indiana border, come someplace, park their vehicle, and then take the 50 into Cincinnati?
Good question. Well, you have a lot of park and rides throughout our entire agency, but it just comes down to working with either private landowners who are willing to offer up 10, 15 park and rides. The closest one to you is actually there's
One
a
on
park.
the Cleves Hamilton Road exit, there's
Yeah,
one right
there's
there.
one right there. There's one over in Delhi Plaza. We're trying to revamp all of them right now. Actually, a lot of them have gone into a state of decay, and so that's our next step is to revitalize our park and rides. It's getting everyone's commuting again ever since all the big corporations have asked for you're back in the office 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, so everyone's back on the road again. And so our express riders and the commuter trips during the time that people are commuting, the numbers are going up and up and up again. And the areas that we have actually invested in our park and rides, those are areas where people are using them. And so I would imagine for something like this, if we're trying to grab some commuters who are even farther out, like in Lawrenceburg or Aurora or all points west, I would imagine the areas around that Kroger would potentially be, but that would require a conversation with Kroger. It's in
Well,
Kroger.
if you're
Kroger
gonna
is
make a
yes or
stop
no.
at Kroger, which
Yeah.
is your original.
Oh, that's exactly
They
what
could
we're
just
doing.
park there anyway and
No,
because
that's-
right because they have such a big parking lot.
That's
Like
the plan.
Whataburger, man.
Yeah. But they wouldn't know. How would they know?
That's the plan. We do have a good relationship with Kroger, but it's they're a very large company and they're kind of hard to get a hold of sometimes. But we've been getting that relationship improved and improved. They listen to us even more when we have some jurisdictions on our side. But there's that area that is just west of their fuel center at the Kroger. There's a big turnaround there.
Yeah.
And I've sometimes scouted it out during the day and said, how many semi-trucks are actually using this right now? And it's rarely enough. And
It's
so,
a big area. It's right by that credit union. and-
yeah, and I said, we could definitely have a bus that could use this area as a turnaround. It'd be safe, it'd be good for our drivers, it'd be good for the people that would shop at Kroger. It's for our drivers, it's a bathroom. It's an area for them to do their layover breaks before they do their city. So that was an area we'd imagine being as a turnaround.
You have some fast food restaurants for it
Yeah,
as well.
there's options, but an area for people to park their cars, either that be Kroger or another property owner, or a jurisdiction that has land right of way. Those are all ways that we can pursue for park and rides. But yeah, that would be a welcome thing, and you could advertise it by saying, ride the 50 and you don't have to go down and pretend you're in NASCAR every single day when you're coming
You
down
gotta talk
River
to
Road.
Fifth Third Bank because they just bought that property and put a new bank in there, but there's that whole property right in front of it, it's just empty.
Huh,
There's land, you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about? Once you turn off
Where
US
West
50
Trump sales
on to
are.
128,
yeah.
on the right-hand side, there's just a big empty lot, and then it's right past there is the Fifth Third Bank.
Oh.
So I don't know if Fifth Third owns that property or what have you, but that might be another location for a park and ride.
Yeah, and we found that having a park and ride that's nice and healthy helps make the look more, like, it makes it look more alive, makes it look more ripe for investment. It's areas that we like to maintain as well. One thing I will say is that for all the stops we do have, we have private contractors that go up and down our routes every single day to maintain them. So we pick up trash, we maintain all of our facilities. And so that's also something that we would maintain as well, would be a park and ride. We have something like a shelter and things like that as well, so people can wait there. But it just requires some buy-in and coordination from all the people we're serving. And so I know this is a lot of information to digest. And this is a plan we have for, well, frankly, 2 years from now. And so it's not immediate, but it's still on the threshold. Time is going faster and faster, it seems. But 2028 would be a time that we were eyeballing for this type of service, and we'd love to continue this conversation. We have our cards and everything. If you would like to have a meeting, even when we invite the public out, and we can chat about that, and they might have ideas, or if you listen from your constituents, they have ideas, we're all ears. We just want to make sure that you're all taxpayers, we want to make sure you're getting your money's worth as well.
Yeah.